For as long as I can remember, our potato storage has been this miserable old cardboard box that every so often tears apart and then is replaced by a new box. So today is the day in my 25th year on this planet that I decided enough is enough. Today I'm going to build a storage and dispenser kind of piece for potatoes. As lumber prices have gone up rather dramatically, I've tried to cut a bit on the cost by taking a discount package of wood, but that meant that for the corner post I had to make my own beams. So glue up time it is. To clean up this glue up, a planer would have been perfect, but I don't have a planer, so a belt sander had to do and actually did a rather good job. My beam was only out of square for a bit, not hurting the further project. And I must say, I've had this Makita miter saw for about 3 months now, and I'm very happy with it. You might say it even made up for the hefty price tag it came with. For once, I also made a cut list in advance, hence I could just cue the music and make cut after cut after cut without having to recheck and measure again and again, which actually sped up the process more than I would expect. Since a potato dispenser is a more utilitarian furniture piece, I chose to do the full build with pocket hole screws. And also because it's just much easier to do it this way than with the more traditional methods, for which I don't really have the necessary skills or equipment yet. Now, once all of these were done, I could start making the actual frame by making a bunch of rectangles using both the pocket holes and the wood glue. This time I'm actually using a water resistant glue, ready to tackle the damp basement environment. Make sure that when you are putting glue on the end grain of wood, that you use it a little more liberally than on other surfaces, but also that you rub it in a bit to make sure that the glue is filling up all the small cavities between the wood fibers. At the bottom of the piece there will be a little 45-degree collector with a hatch on the top to be able to take the potatoes from the bottom of the stack. Now, to fill up the sides, I made these solid side pieces. After all, these will also be holding the weight of the potatoes pushing outwards, so I wanted this to be as rigid as possible. In total, that brought me to one back panel, 2 side panels, a small hatch for the bottom side, a big hatch for the top, and the 45-degree outlet panel, a top peripheral panel, and the front panel. As always, never forget the importance of sanding, even though it's boring as hell to do. Luckily, I know how to cut and speed up this piece of the video. The inner panels will be made from a sheet of MDF. Now, to be able to fit those in the small hatches, I cut out a small rabbet for this panel to lay in. Despite my gorgeous planning effort, I did put a couple of pocket holes on the places where you would be able to see them. So, as any good woodworker will tell you, we all make mistakes constantly. We just need to learn to deal with them. Or in other words, just fill those holes. Once again, I'm also on the floor of my workshop, which after all is the only flat surface I do have. My workbench is just a piece of plywood on a couple of stands, so that's not flat at all. And I've been thinking about building a proper workbench to accommodate these type of things. However, I'm still kind of waiting on the lumber prices to go down a bit, because this would involve otherwise a very hefty price tag, of course. And as you see, this is the small hatch that will be on the front, again with pocket hole screws. However, I found that it was really hard to get these pieces to stay in place while I try to screw in my screws. Also, I don't really have a clamp that would be able to hold that in a 45-degree angle, so if anyone has a good 45-degree angle clamp, let me know. I'd be really interested in that type of clamp. And this is the type of situation where you see me struggling for not having cordless tools. My first attempt, I didn't even reach with my drill. And even still, you see me struggling with the cable stretching behind me. While designing my piece, I apparently was thinking a lot of the traditional wood barns of North America. Looking at the color schemes I am making this in. For you to judge on the final piece, of course. But I think it's quite nice having this color scheme for a potato collector kind of thing. And of course, always learn from your mistakes. And the one you see me making here is that I didn't use a primer on bare pine lumber. Even though I sanded it to a very high grit, I thought it would be enough, but apparently not. I even later had to come back with a primer and then finish with a finishing coat to get everything to a nice white color. Now the inner panels were held on by wood glue, as you saw, and that would probably have been sufficient. After all, the weight of the potatoes will be pushing these panels only firmer in their rabbet groove. But hey, I don't really know what I'm doing, so a little nail all around will probably not hurt either. Note, of course, that you could also do this with a brad nail gun as well, but the sheet of MDF was only 2 millimeters thick, and I only really have a staple gun and a framing nailer, so both would have been a bit of overkill for this thin sheet. So my trusty little hammer was once again very helpful in this situation. The bottom of the frame will be a thick sheet of plywood, which will be held on by, you guessed it, pocket screws. Also, the middle divider inside is created by the same sheet of plywood, making it possible to also store onions or other big pieces of round vegetables next to the potatoes. Notice how I'm eyeballing my drilling angle. After all, I'm not officially a professional, and every now and then I guess even a professional will just go with his feeling. The screws that I'm driving in through the bottom into the divider plate will also help to distribute the weight onto the outer frame down to the ground, because after all, I mean, a full bag of potatoes, 20 kilos, maybe 40 if both sides are filled. This will be a hefty thing. As a final finish on the completed piece, I'm going with a polyurethane spray-on coat, just to be sure that no dirt, dust or moisture will be able to penetrate into the wood. Potatoes are not all that clean after all, so I wanted the best protection for both the interior as the exterior. Something that always should come last in my opinion is the hardware. I'm using these straight drawer tools. I felt that these would be perfect for this type of movement for both the axis and top filling hatch. Now a definitely professional tip from my side is to use these piano hinges, or at least that's what they call them in the hardware store, because they are one piece, and that means that there's no fiddling around with alignment or different hinges in a row, And honestly, I think that they give the most clean look to any type of hatch. And as a final touch, I'm adding my logo to the piece, make it this officially a done project for me. From now on, I will never be embarrassed by my potato storage facilities when I come down the basement stairs.